Welcome. My name is Gerhart, and I'm part of the Kinaxis practice here at MorganFranklin Consulting. Today, I'm here to show you a brief demo of RapidResponse, which is Kinaxis' supply chain planning tool and has been ranked as a market leader by Gartner. RapidResponse is an advanced planning tool that enables you to balance your demand and supply utilizing concurrent planning functionality. The tool will allow you to test multiple what-if scenarios, inform you of component or capacity issues within your network, and propose resolutions to those issues for your evaluation. To get started today, I want to give you a quick overview of what you'll be seeing. So we're going to be solving a product promotion on laptops for an electronics manufacturing company. They're currently running a promo on their laptops in an effort to boost sales. So to get started, we're going to dive into the system and start off by looking at a collaboration that my sales colleague, Dom, prepared for me. From there, we'll take a look at the current market plan and see what our demand is looking like and see if there's an opportunity to run that promo on laptops. From there, we'll utilize scenario planning to test out the promo and decide whether or not it's feasible. We'll go ahead and try to understand the impact of that promo and what it does to the overall business and whether it has a positive or negative impact. If there is a negative impact, such as potentially not being able to fulfill all of the sales orders, then we're going to have to try out a few different ways to resolve that from the supply side. So we'll utilize scenario planning again to evaluate different options for solving the issue at hand. And then finally, we're going to evaluate those multiple scenarios side by side and determine which is the best option for the business moving forward. Once we identify that, we'll go ahead and promote the proper scenario to be our new baseline, and then that's what the business will be able to start operating off of. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into the system and see what this looks like. Okay, so now here we are in RapidResponse. As you can see, this is a web-based platform, so really easy for everyone to access. It's quite intuitive and very user-friendly, which is great for user adoption purposes. Right now, we're taking a look at a dashboard within RapidResponse, and this one in particular is used for demand planning purposes. However, any and all dashboards within RapidResponse are completely configurable to the business needs. So if you have a demand planner that's just planning for the cell phone product group, I can tailor this data down to just show cell phone data. I can also easily swap any of these charts to show other information that's relevant to the planner, etc. So everything is highly configurable and super easy for users to see the information that they actually need to do their jobs. But where I want to draw your attention to in this dashboard right now is just up to this top left-hand corner. I can go ahead and see my messages within the system. So it looks like I was mentioned in a collaboration just a few hours ago from my colleague, Dominic Thomas. Again, he's part of the sales team. So if I take a look at this, he's just asking me saying, hey, we want to run a 15% promo on laptops in August and September. Can you take a look and see if this is possible? So if I draw your attention back here, if I go down to my consensus demand plan, I can start getting a feel for what my demand plan looks like and if that promo might be feasible. So in the current period, in the last few weeks, I can see how my actuals performed compared to our annual plan. And then in the current period and next few, I can see how much of our plan has been consumed versus what's left. And then further out in that time frame of like August and September, I can start seeing that this is just our constrained demand plan, so the consensus number that we reached as a business, and how that's performing compared to our annual plan. So in those specific weeks that Dom was talking about, I'm actually seeing this little orange piece right here, which is the gap to plan. So let's go ahead and drill in and see what that actually is, and start getting some more information. Okay, so here we are in our consensus demand plan. Just going to make a couple quick changes for us to be able to analyze this a bit more easily. So for my purposes, I'm going to go ahead and switch this to units, but as you can see, you're able to see it in dollars as well. And then we're also just going to go ahead and filter down and look specifically at our laptops. So immediately, just with the click of a button, we've shrunk our data set down and are now just looking at laptops as opposed to all of our product groups combined. So up here at the top of our consensus demand plan, we first have our annual plan number. So that's the number that the business has agreed upon in terms of what we should try and achieve week over week, month over month for the entire year. And then we can see the building blocks of our consensus plan. So we've got finance, sales, statistical. We could go ahead and add in marketing if we had that, or perhaps like a direct customer forecast if that were available to us. And all of those numbers are used to come up with this unconstrained demand plan, which is our consensus number. So that's what we're kind of operating off of. And then the system goes ahead and provides us with this constrained demand plan. So this is the number that we're actually able to provide based on the constraints that are in the system, whether that's a capacity constraint, a component constraint, a lead time, or whatever it may be. So if I go ahead and, take a look at this current period and the next few weeks, we're looking good. It looks like our unconstrained demand plan is matching up very closely with our annual plan, which is great. But if we scroll out here and start looking at those periods of August and September, I'm starting to notice this delta to plan that's been highlighted. So we can go ahead and see that our unconstrained demand number is actually a few thousand units short of our annual plan. So it actually works out really well that Dom and the sales team want to run a promo in these periods because it gives us the chance to come closer to hitting our annual plan number. So what we're going to do is test out creating that promo. And to do that, all we need to do is just go ahead and create a private scenario. So I'm just going to call this increased demand. And essentially what this does is it creates a copy of this data set and enables me to privately make changes to our data without affecting the data that all the other planners are working off of at this exact same time. So any change that I make right now is not going to screw up a plan that they're working on and so forth, especially because at the moment, I'm not sure if I'm going to want to keep these changes. So now that we have that private plan, I'm just going to go ahead and take this unconstrained number in these periods, and I'll put it up here into my adjustment. And then what I want to do is, again, we just want that 15% increase. So I'm just going to go ahead and multiply these numbers by 15%. Apply that. Now we can see that that's the 15%, and this number will just be added on to our unconstrained to give us a new total. So with the click of the button, this is going to be the first time you'll witness the concurrent planning in action, but I'm just going to hit save and you'll immediately see that the system regenerates an entirely new plan. So save, and instantly that delta to plan disappeared, and I now have this at-risk percent identified. So the system took this adjustment, added it to our total demand number, and then it ran through our entire network, evaluated how much inventory we have, how much extra capacity, how many components we have on hand to be able to meet this additional demand. And it's saying, hey, there's constraints and we're not able to fulfill all of it. So this is the part that's at risk. We're at 4%, 8%, 23%, etc. risk of how much demand we'll be able to deliver on time. So next, let's go ahead and dig into that and see what that means for the business. So here I can get a better idea of what, my demand picture looks at a high level. So again, in my current period, in the next few weeks, I'm mostly seeing that we've got orders. We're not really going to mess with that too much. Thankfully, none of those orders appear to be at risk at the moment. But then as I go out into future weeks, I'm seeing that we have a lot of forecasts, but then it's telling me that there is some forecast that's at risk. So that's what we want to look at specifically. And if we drill further into there, we can now take a look at these orders and see directly, which customers we're impacting, how late they are, etc. So right now I'm just filtered on only my late orders. That's why everything is red. We are delivering some orders on time. We're just not filtered on those ones right now. But I can go ahead and see by customer groups or by customer, which products are late and how much and so forth. So if I come down here, again, I'm seeing the orders, and the due date that the customer requested, and then this available date is what the system is now telling us when this order will be available based on the constraints. So over here, it does the math for us very nicely, shows us that they're 5 business days late. And then if we just keep scrolling to the right, I can easily see the quantity that's late. If we are able to deliver any part of the order on time, you'll be able to see that on time quantity here, but most of them, that's not the case. And then most importantly over here, we can see that we've integrated our unit selling price into the system. So by incorporating this financial information, we now have direct visibility into like how this really impacts the business. So we know that we're not only just delivering 134 units late, that means that $15,000 is coming in the door late. And maybe we'll be fined on that. So just having these direct translations into financial numbers as opposed to just units. It's giving us really great visibility and allowing supply chain and finance and the entire business to collaborate and work together. But if I go ahead and scroll back over here, we're going to dig into one of these customer orders. So what we're going to look at here when it loads in a second is just a supply chain network chart. And this is going to help us identify where the constraint is within our network. So in just a second, this should pop up, and here we go. So as you can see, this is our entire network for this L3500 product. So we can see all the way over at the left, we've got our external production. These could be suppliers, co-manufacturers, etc. We have our internal production, and you can see the BOM and all the components that are used to make this finished good. We can see how it flows through a central DC and a regional DC and ultimately to the customer. So if we start over here on the right, we can see that this item for Better Buy is obviously late, which we knew, but now we can start tracing it backwards in the network. We can see that it's late at the regional DC. It's also late at the central DC. And that's because it's starting to stem from the latenesses coming from the internal production facility. So this just gives me really good insight as we start, heading over to the supply side of, making me aware that we need to evaluate our internal production, take a look at our capacity, and so forth. However, some of these other orders, I would bet if we dig into them, there are also going to be some further issues with external production and the suppliers. So that's still something we're going to want to take a look at as well. But now to switch gears, we're just going to go ahead and open up our supply dashboard and head over to that space and evaluate some options there. So now we're taking a look at a supply planning dashboard. Lots of good information here, but want to direct your attention down to this bottom right corner where we're looking at gating supply items. And essentially what this is a list of all the items that are creating a constraint for us and making orders late. So here I have a nice little summary of what those items are, and then it presents me with information such as whether there's an alternate source we can look at, if we can expedite from this supplier to get the components in on time, if we can transfer from an alternate source, etc. So I just have really great visibility into, what options I can start evaluating. So we're going to take a look at this D3511 product and see what this alternate source is. So if I just drill into that, again, same list of those products up top, but if we look down here at the bottom, I'm now seeing what the alternate source for D3511 is. And in this case, we can see that there are two. The one that we're currently utilizing is priority number 1. And if we look over here to the right, we can see why that's the case. And that's because it has a shorter lead time and it's about half the price as supplier number 2. So ideally, we don't want to have to use supplier number 2, but we need to meet these orders. So we're going to test it out and see if that helps us at all. So to do that, I'm just going to go in here again, create a new scenario, and let me just swap it to this new one that we created. Here we go. And we're just going to say enable alternate supplier. Again, creating another private scenario where we can go ahead and test things out. And all I need to do here is just go in and switch this from disabled, and we're going to say we can now buy from this supplier. I'm going to quickly hit save. And similar to what we saw before, this entire plan has now been regenerated. So we can look at this in lots of different places, but for our purposes right now, I'm just going to swap back to that consensus demand planning workbook. And we're just going to go ahead and take a look at this alternate supplier. So I know that was really quick. Before we were just looking at where we had increased the demand, but in these periods right here, you should have seen a change where this at-risk percent dropped. So by turning on that alternate supplier, we were able to get some of those components on time, to get a few more orders out the door, but it didn't make a huge impact. So we're going to head back to our supply planning dashboard, and now we're going to take a look at capacity, because we do know from our demand order analysis that that was an issue. So I can see our constraint utilization at a high level for each resource and line that we have week over week. And if I scroll down, this conditional formatting is calling out to me that here on line 12, we're fully maxed out in these periods from like July through September. And so I'm going to drill into this line and see if there's anything we can do to resolve this. All right, so now we're in a capacity planning workbook, and what we can see here is our available load on this line. So each week we're able to make 12,000 units on this line. I can see my load, which is how much I ideally want to place on this line. So in these weeks, we're not, quite making 12,000. It's being underutilized a bit, but then as we go out into the future, we're starting to see that we're trying to make even more than possible on this line, and we're overutilized. So that gives me the idea that, perhaps we could take advantage of some of this underutilization in the prior periods and pre-build some of the units to resolve the overload here. So to do that, I'm just going to go ahead and, again, open up another quick workbook. And this one is just showing me all the different parts that are made on this line. So I can see that this is a laptop line. All of these products being made are laptops. And currently, we don't have this pre-plan feature enabled. So we're going to go ahead and turn that on. Again, one more scenario to create. And we'll call this one enable pre-plan. And then all we want to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and edit the values for all of these products and change it to a -1. So what this means is that I'm going to tell the system to go ahead and pre-plan these products as far in advance as possible, so long as the components that are needed to make these products are available. So again, I'm just going to, go ahead and hit save, and that entire plan will be regenerated. And up here, you might have just noticed that our load changed. So in these weeks where we had some underutilization, that's now disappeared. We're now utilizing the full 12,000 each week. And then out here in August, we can see that we're still overloaded, but these numbers aren't looking quite as bad as they were before. So again, let's hop back to our consensus demand planning. Keep your eyes on this at-risk percent. And now I'm just going to swap in that enable pre-plan option. And we can see that those numbers drastically dropped there. So they're still not completely gone, but they're a lot better now that we're able to pre-plan and, use additional capacity to make more units to sell. However, I don't want to just base my decision of pre-planning based off of how much that risk percent dropped. There could be other factors that I want to take a look at. So to do that, we're going to evaluate these various scenarios side by side by using what's called a scorecard in RapidResponse. And essentially what this is it allows us to look at our key metrics. So things such as revenue or margin or on time to request factor. and we can weight each of these. So for our business, it looks like the revenue is the most important key metric to us, but we could go ahead and swap those numbers and maybe say that the on time to request is the most important. We can easily also swap in other metrics that are important to the business. So it could even be something along the lines of a sustainability metric like CO2 emissions, if that's very important to the business. We can go ahead and add that in here and then have the system pick the best plan based off of how it scores on those selected metrics. But right now we're just going to keep these ones that we have. And starting over here on the left-hand side, this was our baseline. So this is what we saw right when we came into the system. This was before we added the promo, and we can just see, how everything was when we started off. Then we went ahead and added that promo in August and September. Again, that 15% increase on the laptops. We can see that that increased our revenue, but our on time to request went down a good chunk. So then we took a look at how we could resolve that on the supply side, first by enabling an alternate supplier. So if we look at the overall metrics here, it didn't help too much. We weren't able to get, the component shortage wasn't the biggest issue, it appears. So our on time to request only went up by 0.2%. However, once we enabled pre-planning, we can see that on time to request shot up to 92.7%. So a good chunk of the orders that we weren't able to fulfill were based on the fact that we were capacity constrained in the periods where the orders needed to be fulfilled. So just by pre-planning them a few weeks ahead of time, we were able to increase our revenue and that on time to request. So to wrap things up, I'm going to go ahead back to this collaboration with Dom, and I'm just going to say, hey Dom, looks like if we pre-plan, we can meet most of the additional demand tied to the promo. So I'm going to share that with him, again, collaborating within the system. He'll be able to pull this up directly and view it with his own eyes, and then we can work together and decide on how the business should proceed. So that is the functionality of RapidResponse boiled down into a quick little demo. I hope it showed you how you can, effectively use this system to balance your supply and demand. Also how you can very quickly model what-if scenarios, and of course, evaluating that financial impact and how important that is to the business. And that's really just going to increase your visibility and transparency across the organization. And who wouldn't want that? So I hope you found this demo really informative. If you have any questions or if you'd like to see a personalized demo that's tailored to your business, we're more than happy to do so. So just please reach out to us at Morgan Franklin and we'd be happy to get something sent up. Thanks.